Hi, welcome to Inside Practice. Today we're joined by Elizabeth Rimmer, CEO of Lawcare and key speaker at Legal Wellbeing on the 11th September in London. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks very much, Rebecca. I'm really glad to be here. I've been at Lawcare for almost 10, coming up for 10 years now, I think, which seems to have gone in the blink of an eye. So Lawcare is the mental health charity for the legal sector across the UK, and we've been here since 1997, so almost 30 years we've been in this space. But I think in particular, as you've said, I think we've seen a big increase in discussion and engagement around mental health and why that matters in legal workplaces, particularly since the pandemic. And although I think there's greater awareness and discussion and engagement around it, I still think we have some work to do about how we really embed and prioritize this within our legal workplaces and really recognize the value that good mental health of your people, why that's important to you as a employer or a business owner. But I think the amplification about the discussion is a really positive step forward. And also, this is now on the agenda for legal regulators, professional bodies, legal insurers, and legal educators. So we're seeing more of the institutional organizations getting involved and thinking about what their role is in addressing this agenda for the sector.
And how would you personally like to see culture evolve, specifically law firm culture, in the next decade when it comes to prioritising well-being for say, lawyers?
So I think number one is I think I'd love to see law firms and in-house teams and chambers and where people work, across the sector, really recognizing that their people are their greatest asset and that investing and valuing the mental health and the minds of those people should be a priority, not a tick box exercise. And I think I think generally organizations are good at supporting and helping somebody when a problem has arisen. So if someone is stressed or they're approaching burnout or they need some time off or time out, I think organizations generally are quite good at responding to that. I think where we need to go is that preventative approach. We need to see organizations thinking about where the risks might lie to people's mental health in the way they work or the environment that they're in, and thinking about what they could do to either eliminate or mitigate those risks so that we are preventing people from developing mental health issues that might be related to work. That kind of classic quote from Desmond Tutu, which I'm kind of paraphrasing, is, we don't want to just pull people out of the river when they're drowning. We want to go upstream and stop them falling in the first place. So I think that's where I'd really like to see legal workplaces going, that proactive, preventative approach.
Brilliant. And I know you've just mentioned mental health and burnout. What do you think are some common misconceptions, especially in the legal profession, about mental health and burnout, and how should we be addressing them?
Well, I think that's a big question, and burnout has become very topical. And Lawcare actually looked at this in a study that we did in 2021, where we measured burnout in the sector. And we found that our sample size, which was just over 1,700 legal professionals, were already above the cutoff point for being at high risk of burnout. I think the challenge is that there's a kind of acceptance, perhaps in some people's minds, that working in law is tough, it's hard, it requires long hours, there's lots of expectations to meet, and that it's kind of par for the course of working in this environment. And I think there's still an element of people who think, well, if you can't cut it in that environment, then you're not a suitable person for this role, and not everyone can hack that. And I think we need to dispel that myth that actually with the right support, recognizing and valuing our mental health and taking on board the things we can do to support that can actually protect us from developing poor mental health. So it's not that people aren't cut out for this role, it's about the way we work in law that is a challenge. So I think there's a sense that that's expected, and that almost I think some people see this as a badge of honor, not necessarily developing stress or burnout, but being able to work under extreme pressure and long hours. And I think we need to address that these are not desirable outcomes, and this isn't the way people should be working, and that with the better working environments and better support, people can have healthy and sustainable legal careers.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you have a wealth of experience on supporting individual lawyers through Lawcare. What advice would you give to firm leaders about how to effectively support their team's well-being and the ROI for that?
Yeah, I think coming back to what I said earlier, I think if organizations recognize that people are their greatest asset, then I think how those people are managed and led needs to be a priority. So we know across the sector that less than half the people that have a management responsibility for other people have had any training in how to manage people. So I think that I would be saying to law firms, what you really need to be doing is investing in your capacity and effectiveness of how you manage people. So those with management responsibilities, support them to do that well. Ensure that those managers have got the time and the resource to have regular catch-ups with the people they manage, because we also know that people rate the most valued mental health support in the workplace as an opportunity to have a catch up with a colleague. But what tends to happen in practice is there's so many competing obligations that regular catch up in a manager's diary with a colleague gets bumped because an urgent matter has come in from a client. That signals to that colleague, oh, I'm not as important, or I don't matter. And it's through those sitting down and having regular catch-ups, you build a relationship of trust. You're more likely to notice if someone is struggling. They're more likely to tell you if they're overwhelmed or they've made a mistake or they're worried about something. So it provides such a unique opportunity, not a unique, a valuable opportunity to have those conversations so that you can head issues off at the pass or ensure people get the support that they need, or you work out how to respond to something. So I think that would be my big message, is about really ensuring that you have effective people management and supervision in place.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And it starts with leadership and trickles down across every industry,
It does.
particularly in
Yeah.
law. But especially some highlighted words at the moment in wellness among lawyers are things like empathy and compassion. And these are key qualities in leadership. How do you see those things playing an effective role in law firms today when it comes to being an effective and good leader?
I think they're absolutely key. And in fact, I was at a leadership conference last week in Liverpool, and there was a whole session on this, that the kind of traditional view of back in the, I don't know, 30 or 40 years ago was more of a control and command style of leadership, or leaders needed to be seen as assertive and directive. But there's been a shift away from that to recognize that actually it's your human skills that are so important. Your empathy, your ability to build trust, your compassion, recognizing that the relationships we have in the workplace are so important, not only to mental health, but also to the productivity and the engagement of people in your organization. So I think leaders that are empathetic and are compassionate and are authentic and talk about issues openly are the ones that are going to build workplaces where people are more engaged, they're more productive, they're going to want to come to work. I think those skills and traits help you create an organization that becomes a great place to work. And I think in an increasingly complex and evolving legal landscape in terms of the way we work as lawyers, the way legal services are being impacted by technology and artificial intelligence, it's changing the way those services can be delivered, that people are looking to their leaders to help them navigate the kind of changing landscape against a backdrop of a very uncertain geopolitical climate. So leaders that have those human qualities, I think, are better placed to create those organizations that carry people with them and keep them in your organization, because that's another challenge we face in law, is retention and attrition. So I think leaders under having those skills are so important, also because I think it signals you have a better understanding about yourself. If you're not managing your own mental health and your emotional reactions to things, and modeling the kinds of behaviors you want to see in your workplace as a leader, then it's going to make it very hard for other people to adopt those kinds of practices as well. So I think they're absolutely critical, and they are recognized, as you say now, as the sorts of traits that people are expecting to see in their leaders.
Absolutely. And I would love to finish off this interview with just one last question.
Oh, yeah.
Something you mentioned before about cultural shifts. If you could implement one cultural shift in the legal profession regarding well-being, what would it be and why?
Oh, one cultural shift, there's so many. I think I'd go back to what I've already talked about. I think it would be mandatory management training for people that manage others. Equip and support those that manage other people to do a better job, or do a good job of it. And to recognize the value in good people management, because ultimately it does affect your bottom line.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today, Elizabeth, and it's shaping up to be a really great event in September.
I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.